The iron shackles bit into her wrists as they dragged her through the mud toward the gallows, and Gareth Brennan knew that if he did not speak now, the woman who had saved his life would hang before the sun cleared the eastern hills. He pushed through the crowd gathered in the town square of Milford, his heart hammering against his ribs. The wooden platform loomed ahead, freshly constructed for this execution. Dawn painted the sky in shades of blood orange and bruised purple, as if the heavens themselves mourned what was about to happen. The orc woman stumbled as the guards yanked her forward, her green skin pale from weeks in the dungeon, her body thin beneath the tattered remains of what had once been travel clothes. Gareth had not slept in 3 days. He had ridden hard from his farmstead at the edge of the wilderness, 20 miles through country where bandits roamed freely, because word had reached him too late. They had arrested her a month ago. The trial had been swift, the verdict predetermined. After all, what chance did an orc have in a human court when the crime was murder? Stop! Gareth's voice cracked as he shouted, but it carried across the square. Heads turned. The guards paused halfway up the gallows steps. Judge Carfax stood on the platform, a portly man with silver whiskers and cold eyes that had seen too many hangings to feel much about another. He squinted down at Gareth with irritation. The verdict has been rendered. The sentence will be carried out. I have new testimony, Gareth said, climbing the steps toward the platform. His legs shook, but he forced himself forward. Evidence that was not presented at the trial. You are out of order, Mr. Brennan. Gareth Brennan. I own the farmstead where this happened, where Marcus Fallen died. That got the judge's attention. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Gareth glanced at the orc woman. Her name was Kara, though he had not known it during those first desperate days. She stared at him now with yellow eyes that held no hope, only exhaustion and a kind of bitter acceptance. Blood crusted the corner of her mouth where someone had struck her. Her tusks, small and curving up from her lower jaw, were chipped. You have 30 seconds, Judge Carfax said. Then we proceed. Gareth's mouth went dry. He had rehearsed this 100 times during the ride here, but now with every eye on him, the words tangled in his throat. He looked at Kara again. She gave the smallest shake of her head as if telling him not to bother, not to waste his breath. That was what steadied him. The fact that she expected nothing, expected no mercy, no justice. She had probably expected nothing her whole life. Marcus Fallen was not murdered, Gareth said clearly. He died trying to murder me, and this woman, Kara, killed him to save my life. The square erupted. Judge Carfax banged his gavel against the wooden rail, demanding silence. The guards tightened their grip on Kara's arms. Gareth pressed on before he could be silenced. Last winter, during the hard snows, I was alone on my farm. My wife died 3 years ago in childbirth, and I worked the land by myself. I had hired Marcus Fallen to help with the harvest the previous autumn. He worked for me 6 weeks, and I paid him fair wages. But he left angry because I would not give him more than what we agreed upon. Gareth took a breath. The crowd had quieted, hungry for the story. I did not see Marcus again until February. A blizzard hit, the worst I have seen in my life. I was in my barn, tending to the animals when I heard someone pounding on the door. I opened it, thinking perhaps a traveler needed shelter. Instead, I found her. He pointed at Kara. She was half frozen, barely able to stand. She had frostbite on her hands and feet. She said nothing, just collapsed in the snow outside my barn. He paused, remembering that moment. The shock of seeing an orc at his doorstep. Every story he had ever heard about orcs flooded his mind, how they raided villages, how they killed without mercy, how they were beasts in the shape of people. But she had not looked like a beast. She had looked like someone dying. I brought her inside, Gareth continued. I do not know why. Decency, I suppose. I could not leave any creature to freeze to death. I put her in the barn, gave her blankets, built up the fire. She was delirious with fever. For 3 days I tended to her. Brought her water, food when she could take it. She did not speak much, and when she did, I could barely understand her. But she was no threat to me. She could hardly move. Judge Carfax leaned forward, his interest caught despite himself. Get to the point, Mr. Brennan. On the 4th day, the blizzard broke. I went to check on her in the morning and found her sitting up, more aware. She thanked me, said she would leave as soon as she was able. I told her to rest another day, that the cold was still dangerous. Gareth's hands clenched into fists. That afternoon, Marcus Fallon arrived at my farm. The crowd pressed closer, eager to hear more. Gareth felt sweat on his back despite the cool morning air. Marcus was drunk, stinking of whiskey, barely able to stand straight. He demanded money, said I owed him for additional work. I told him I owed him nothing. We had settled accounts months before. He became angry, violent. He shoved me against the wall of my house. I am not a small man, but Marcus was bigger, and I was tired from days of little sleep. Gareth's voice grew quieter, forcing people to strain to hear. He pulled a knife, said if I would not give him coin, he would take everything I owned. He would burn my house, kill my livestock, and then he would kill me. I fought him, but he cut me here. Gareth pulled aside his collar, showing the scar that ran along his collarbone. And here. He held up his left hand where 2 fingers bore white lines. I fell. He stood over me with the knife raised. Kara's eyes had closed. She did not want to hear this, Gareth realized, did not want to relive it. Then she came from the barn, Gareth said. Kara. She should not have been able to walk, let alone fight. But she had heard the commotion. She had a piece of firewood in her hands. She shouted at Marcus to stop. He turned on her instead, called her a monster, said he would gut her first and then me. Gareth's voice shook now with anger and remembered fear. Marcus lunged at her. She defended herself. They fought. Despite her weakness, despite her injuries, she was stronger than him. The firewood struck his head. He went down. He did not get back up. Silence hung over the square. Even the birds had stopped their morning songs. Marcus Fallon died because he tried to murder me in my own home, Gareth said. Kara killed him in my defense and in her own. That is not murder. That is justice. Judge Carfax stroked his whiskers, his expression unreadable. Why did you not testify at the trial, Mr. Brennan? I did not know there was a trial, Gareth said, and he heard the bitterness in his own voice. After Marcus died, Kara fled. She left that very night while I was still bleeding. I did not see her again. I buried Marcus on my property as is proper. When the sheriff came investigating a month later because Marcus's brother reported him missing, I told the truth about what happened. But by then, Kara was long gone. And yet here we are, the judge said. The sheriff's men tracked her through the wilderness, Gareth said. They found her in a cave 2 weeks later. They arrested her. They charged her with murder, but they never sent word to me, never asked me to testify. I only learned of the trial 3 days ago from a trapper who stopped at my farm. By then, she had already been convicted. Gareth climbed the last step onto the platform. He stood directly before the judge. I am the victim in this case. I am the one Marcus Fallon tried to kill. And I am telling you that this woman saved my life. She owes no debt. She deserves no punishment. She deserves freedom. Judge Carfax was quiet for a long moment. The executioner stood beside the gallows, rope in hand, waiting. Kara had opened her eyes again, and she stared at Gareth with an expression he could not read. Disbelief, perhaps, or maybe just exhaustion. This is highly irregular, the judge said finally. The trial concluded. The trial was incomplete, Gareth interrupted. How can you render justice when you did not hear from the person whose life hung in the balance? I am that person, Your Honor, and I am saying she should go free." The crowd erupted again, some shouting in agreement, others in protest. Judge Carfax banged his gavel repeatedly until order was restored. He looked at Kara, then at Gareth, then at the rope waiting to claim a life. "The law is the law," he said slowly. "But the law also requires all relevant testimony be heard before sentence is carried out. If you swear under oath that what you have told me is true, Mr. Brennan, then I must reconsider the verdict." "I swear it," Gareth said immediately. "Every word." The judge gestured to the guards. "Take the prisoner back to the holding cell. This court is reconvened. We will hear full testimony from Mr. Brennan within the hour." Relief flooded through Gareth so suddenly that his knees nearly buckled. The guards led Kara away, and this time she looked back at him. Their eyes met. She mouthed something that might have been "thank you," though he could not be certain. The crowd dispersed, some disappointed at the lack of spectacle, others intrigued by this new turn. Gareth followed Judge Carfax into the courthouse, a modest stone building that served Milford and the surrounding territory. His hands would not stop shaking. Inside a small courtroom, Gareth was sworn in properly. The judge sat behind a high desk, looking down at him with sharp eyes that missed nothing. A clerk scratched notes with a quill. 2 guards stood by the door. Kara was brought in and made to sit on a bench, still shackled. For 2 hours, Gareth told his story in painstaking detail. The judge interrupted frequently, asking questions, probing for inconsistencies. But there were none, because Gareth spoke only the truth. He described the blizzard, Kara's condition when he found her, the days he spent nursing her back to health. He described Marcus Fallen's arrival, the fight, the moment of terror when he thought he would die. And he described Kara's intervention, the desperate struggle, Marcus falling. "Why did she run?" the judge asked. "If it was self-defense, why flee?" Gareth looked at Kara. She sat perfectly still, her face expressionless. "I cannot speak for her," he said. "But if I were an orc in human lands, knowing how orcs are treated, I would not trust the law to protect me either." "So you admit she knew she had done wrong?" "No," Gareth said firmly. "I think she knew that right and wrong would not matter to humans who already saw her as a monster. I think she fled because she believed no one would listen to her side of the story. And she was correct, was she not? You tried and convicted her without ever asking me what happened." Judge Carfax's expression hardened. "Mind your tone, Mr. Brennan." "I speak plainly because time is short," Gareth said, "and because an innocent woman's life hangs in the balance." The judge sat back in his chair, steepling his fingers. He studied Kara for a long moment. "Do you have anything to say, Orc?" Kara lifted her head. When she spoke, her voice was rough from disuse but clear. "I killed the human. That part is true. I do not deny it." "Why did you do it?" "Because he was about to kill Gareth Brennan," she said simply. "And Gareth Brennan had shown me kindness when he had no reason to. He saved my life. I could do no less for him." "You could have let him die," the judge said. "Fled into the storm, saved yourself." Kara's yellow eyes burned with sudden intensity. "I am orc, but I am not without honor. Gareth Brennan gave me warmth and food and mercy when I was dying. I would be the worst of cowards to let him be murdered when I could prevent it." "Pretty words," the judge said. "But how do I know you are not simply agreeing with Mr. Brennan's story to save your own skin?" "Because I told the same story when your men arrested me," Kara said. "I told the sheriff exactly what happened. I told the men at the trial. No one believed me. No one cared. You had decided I was guilty before I ever opened my mouth." Judge Carfax said nothing to that. The clerk's quill scratched in the silence. Finally, the judge stood. "I will render my decision at sunset. Until then, the prisoner remains in custody. "Mr. Brennan, you are free to go." "I will stay," Gareth said. "That is not necessary. I will stay," Gareth repeated. "I have come this far. I will see it through." The judge shrugged and left the courtroom. The guards took Kara away. Gareth was shown to a small waiting room where he sat on a hard wooden bench and tried not to think about what would happen if the judge decided his testimony was not enough. Hours crawled by. Outside the window, the sun traced its arc across the sky. Gareth could not eat, though someone brought him bread and cheese. He could not rest. He could only wait and remember. He remembered the morning after Marcus died, waking to find Kara gone. He had been relieved at first, if he was honest with himself. Relieved that he did not have to figure out what to do with an orc living in his barn. But as the days passed, he had thought about her more and more. Wondered if she had survived, if her injuries had healed, if she had found somewhere safe. He remembered the anger he felt when the sheriff told him she had been captured and tried. The casual way the man had mentioned it, as if it were nothing, as if her life were nothing. And he remembered the moment on the gallows this morning when their eyes met and he saw that she expected nothing from him, expected nothing from anyone. That was what haunted him most. The resignation in her face, the acceptance of injustice. The sun was touching the western horizon when a guard came to fetch him. Gareth followed the man back to the courtroom. It was fuller now. Word had spread, and townspeople packed the benches, eager to see how this would end. Kara was brought in again, and this time Gareth saw that someone had given her water and perhaps food. She looked less gray, though still weak. Judge Carfax entered, and everyone stood. He took his seat and surveyed the room. The silence was absolute. "I have considered the testimony of Gareth Brennan," the judge said. "I have reviewed the circumstances of Marcus Fallen's death, and I have reached a decision." Gareth held his breath. "The original trial was conducted without full knowledge of the facts," Judge Carfax said. "Mr. Brennan's testimony establishes that Marcus Fallen was engaged in an act of attempted murder when he died. Under the law, a person has the right to defend themselves and others from lethal force. The orc Kara acted in defense of Mr. Brennan's life. Therefore, the charge of murder is hereby dismissed." A collective gasp went through the room. Gareth felt his knees weaken with relief, but the judge was not finished. "However," Carfax continued, "the defendant did flee the scene. She did attempt to evade justice. While I accept that her actions were understandable given the circumstances, the law cannot simply ignore flight from authority. Therefore, I am imposing a sentence of 1 year's labor." "What?" Gareth said, but the judge spoke over him. "The defendant will be released into the custody of Gareth Brennan. She will work on his farm for 1 year, as recompense for the costs incurred by the county in her capture and trial. At the end of that year, if Mr. Brennan certifies that she has fulfilled her obligations, she will be free to go where she wills with no further charges." The judge banged his gavel. "This matter is concluded." Gareth stood frozen as the courtroom erupted into noise. People shouted questions. Guards moved to restore order. Kara was staring at him again, and this time her expression was one of pure shock. A guard unlocked her shackles. "She is your responsibility now, Mr. Brennan. If she runs, you will be held accountable." Gareth nodded mutely. He moved toward Kara as the crowd swirled around them. She rubbed her wrists where the iron had chafed them raw. "You did not have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did," Gareth replied. "It was the truth. You could have let me hang, most humans would have. I am not most humans." She studied him, and he saw the distrust in her eyes. Of course she did not trust him. Why would she? She had been arrested, tried, and convicted by humans, nearly executed by them. Now she was being forced into indentured service to one of them. Even if he had saved her life today, she had no reason to believe he was any different from the others. "Come on," Gareth said. "We have a long ride back to the farm." They left the courthouse as dusk settled over Milford. Gareth had tied his horse outside, a sturdy gelding named Ash. He helped Kara up behind him, and she settled onto the horse's back with obvious discomfort. She was so thin, all sharp angles and bone. A month in the dungeon had nearly starved her. They rode in silence as the town fell away behind them. The road wound through farmland, then into wilder country where forests pressed close. Night fell, and Gareth lit a lantern he carried on his saddle. Stars emerged overhead, cold and distant. "We will camp here," Gareth said when they reached a clearing beside a stream. He dismounted and helped Kara down. She moved stiffly, wincing with every step. Gareth unsaddled Ash and let the horse drink. He gathered wood and built a fire. From his saddlebags he pulled out dried meat, hard bread, and a flask of water. Kara sat by the fire, holding her hands toward the warmth. Gareth offered her food and she took it without a word. They ate in awkward silence. Gareth wanted to say something, but he did not know what. "Thank you for saving my life" seemed insufficient. "I am sorry you were nearly hanged" seemed obvious. Finally, Kara spoke. "Why do you live alone?" Gareth glanced at her. "I told you, my wife died 3 years ago. You have no family, no one to help you work the land. My parents are dead. I have a brother in the capital, but we do not speak. It is just me." "And you took in an orc during a blizzard," Kara said. There was something in her voice, not quite disbelief, but close to it. "I took in someone who was dying," Gareth said. "What does it matter what you are? It matters to everyone else." "Well, it did not matter to me." Kara was quiet for a moment. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the woods, an owl hooted. "I was traveling south," she said, "trying to reach the borderlands. My clan cast me out." "Why?" She flexed her hands, staring at them. "I refused to raid a human village. The elders said we needed supplies for winter. I said raiding would only bring retaliation, that we should trade instead. They called me weak, a traitor. They gave me until dawn to leave or they would kill me." Gareth felt a pang of sympathy. "So you were running from your own people." "I have no people," Kara said. "Not anymore. The clan made that clear." "Then I suppose we are both alone," Gareth said. She looked at him across the fire, and for the first time he saw something soften in her expression. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of it. They slept on opposite sides of the fire. Gareth woke several times during the night, disturbed by dreams of gallows and knives. Each time he woke, he saw Kara sitting up, staring into the flames. She did not sleep at all, as far as he could tell. By dawn, they were riding again. They reached Gareth's farm by mid-afternoon. It was a modest place, 100 acres of fields and pasture, a sturdy farmhouse with a stone chimney, a barn and a few outbuildings. Sheep grazed in one pasture. Chickens scratched in the yard. It was good land, if lonely. Gareth showed Kara to the barn. "You can sleep here," he said. "I will bring you blankets, proper ones this time, and clothes. You cannot work in rags." "I can sleep in the barn," Kara said, "but I do not need your charity." "It is not charity. You are going to be working for me. That means I need to make sure you do not collapse from cold or hunger." Practical, not charity. She almost smiled at that. Almost. Over the next few days, Gareth learned that Kara was a hard worker. Despite her lingering weakness, she threw herself into the labor of the farm. She mucked out the barn, repaired fences, hauled water from the well. She spoke little, but she watched everything with sharp eyes. Learning, Gareth realized, figuring out how things worked. He gave her better clothes, simple work garb that was too big but serviceable. He made sure she ate 3 solid meals a day. Slowly, color returned to her green skin. The hollows under her eyes filled out. Her movements became less stiff, more fluid, but she did not trust him. That was clear. She flinched when he came near unexpectedly. She watched him when she thought he was not looking, as if waiting for him to turn on her. And she never spoke more than necessary, never shared anything about herself beyond what she had told him that first night. Gareth told himself it did not matter. She was here because the judge ordered it, not by choice. She would work for a year and then leave, and his life would return to the quiet loneliness it had been before. That was fine. He did not need companionship. He had his farm, his sheep, his work. That was enough. Except it was not enough, and he knew it. Spring arrived, bringing with it the endless labor of planting. Gareth and Kara worked side by side in the fields, turning soil, sowing seeds. The work was back-breaking, and Gareth was grateful for her strength. What would have taken him weeks alone took only days with her help. One evening, as they walked back from the fields covered in dirt and sweat, Kara said, "You are a good farmer." It was the first compliment she had ever given him. Gareth blinked in surprise. "Thank you. Your land is well kept. Your animals are healthy. You know what you are doing." "My father taught me," Gareth said, "before he died. This was his farm and his father's before him. And you work it alone." "Not anymore," Gareth said, then immediately regretted it. Kara's expression shuddered. "I mean, for now, while you are here, I am grateful for the help." She nodded and said nothing more. But that night, as Gareth lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, he could not stop thinking about the way she had looked at the fields. There had been something in her face, something almost like contentment. As if she were not a prisoner serving out a sentence, but someone who belonged here. He told himself he was imagining it. The weeks turned into months. Summer arrived, blazing and hot. The crops grew tall and green. Gareth's sheep produced healthy lambs. The farm prospered in ways it had not since his wife died, and Gareth knew it was because he was no longer doing everything alone. Kara began to speak more. Not much, but enough that Gareth learned things about her. She was 23 years old, only a year younger than him. She had been trained as a warrior in her clan, taught to fight and hunt. She missed the mountains where she had grown up, the high peaks and cold streams. She had a younger brother who she hoped was safe, though she would never see him again. In turn, Gareth told her about his life. How he had married young, full of hope for the future. How his wife, Eliza, had been kind and clever and had made the farmhouse feel like a home. How she had died giving birth to a daughter who lived only an hour. How Gareth had buried them both beneath the oak tree on the hill overlooking the fields, and how he visited their graves every Sunday. Kara listened to all of this without judgment. "Loss is heavy," she said. "You carry it well." "I do not feel like I carry it well," Gareth admitted. "Some days it is all I can do to get out of bed." "But you do get out of bed," Kara said. "You do the work, you keep going, that is strength." Gareth had never thought of it that way, but hearing her say it, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe he was stronger than he thought. Maybe survival was its own kind of victory. One hot afternoon in July, Gareth and Kara were mending the fence around the sheep pasture when a group of riders appeared on the road. 3 men, armed with swords and hard faces. They stopped at the edge of Gareth's property, eyeing the farm. "Gareth Brennan," one of them called. He was a broad-shouldered man with a scar across his cheek. Gareth set down his tools and walked toward them, Kara following. "I am Gareth Brennan. What do you want?" "I am Thomas Fallon," the man said. "Marcus Fallon was my brother." Gareth's blood went cold. He stopped a dozen paces from the riders, Kara at his side. "I am sorry for your loss." "Are you?" Thomas Fallon spat. "You got my brother killed." "Your brother tried to kill me," Gareth said evenly. "I am sorry he is dead, but he brought it on himself." Thomas's eyes shifted to Kara. and the orc scum got off free, no punishment for murdering a human. She is serving a sentence, Gareth said. 1 year of labor, ordered by Judge Carfax. A year of labor, Thomas sneered. For a human life, you call that justice? I call it mercy, Gareth said, which is more than your brother showed me. Thomas dismounted, his hand on his sword hilt. The other 2 riders followed suit. Gareth tensed, but he did not back away. Kara shifted her weight, ready to fight if needed. I want compensation, Thomas said. Marcus was the breadwinner for his family. His wife, his children, they are destitute now. You owe them. I owe them nothing, Gareth said. Marcus chose his path. He could have walked away. He chose violence. You lying bastard, Thomas snarled. He drew his sword, and his companions did the same. Kara moved in front of Gareth so fast he barely saw her. She had picked up a fence post, a heavy piece of wood with iron nails still embedded in it. She held it like a weapon, her yellow eyes blazing. You will not touch him, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Thomas laughed. Look at this. The orc thinks she is a hero. Step aside, monster. This is between humans. You will have to go through me, Kara said. Gareth's heart pounded. He stepped up beside her. Stop this, Thomas. I do not want more blood spilled. Take your grief and go. Not until I get what I am owed, Thomas said. He lunged forward, sword raised. Kara met him with the fence post blocking the blade. The impact rang out like a bell. Thomas staggered back, surprise flashing across his face. Kara pressed forward, swinging the post with brutal efficiency. One of the other men tried to flank her, but Gareth grabbed a shovel and swung it at the man's legs, knocking him off balance. The fight was chaotic and short. Kara was a trained warrior, and even weakened from her imprisonment, she was more than a match for men who relied on intimidation rather than skill. She disarmed Thomas with a blow that sent his sword flying, then cracked the fence post against his ribs hard enough to drop him. The other 2 men scrambled backward, seeing their leader fall. Leave, Kara said, standing over Thomas. Before I forget, I am not supposed to kill humans anymore. Thomas clutched his ribs, gasping. His face was twisted with rage and pain. This is not over, he wheezed. Yes, it is, Gareth said. He picked up Thomas's sword and tossed it into the bushes. Your brother was a drunk and a thief who tried to rob me. That is the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. Now get off my land. Thomas and his men retreated, mounting their horses and riding away. But Thomas looked back once, and the hatred in his eyes was unmistakable. When they were gone, Gareth exhaled shakily. His hands were trembling. Thank you, he said to Kara. She dropped the fence post and turned to him. You are a fool. You should have paid them off. I do not reward thugs. Then you should have let me kill them. They will be back. Maybe, Gareth said, but I will not become a murderer to avoid that possibility. Kara shook her head, but there was something in her expression that might have been respect. You are a strange man, Gareth Brennan. So I have been told. That night, Gareth could not sleep. He sat on the porch of his farmhouse, watching the moonlight silver the fields. He heard footsteps and looked up to see Kara approaching from the barn. She hesitated, as if unsure whether she was welcome, then sat down on the porch steps a few feet away. You should rest, she said. So should you. I do not sleep well, she admitted. I keep thinking they will come in the night, the sheriff's men, the judge, someone. I keep thinking I will wake up in chains again. You will not, Gareth said. I will not let that happen. You cannot stop it if they decide they want me gone. Then they will have to go through me, Gareth said, echoing her words from earlier. Kara looked at him, and in the moonlight her eyes were luminous. Why do you care? You barely know me. I know you saved my life, Gareth said. I know you are a hard worker and an honorable person. I know you were cast out by your clan for refusing to hurt innocent people. That is enough. You think too well of me. I think exactly as well of you as you deserve." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You are not like other humans I have met. Is that a good thing?" "I do not know yet," she said, but there was the faintest hint of warmth in her voice. They sat together in the silence, and Gareth felt something settle in his chest. Not quite peace, but close to it. Summer faded into autumn. The harvest came, and Gareth and Kara worked from dawn to dusk bringing in the crops. It was good yield, the best Gareth had seen in years. He took a wagon load of grain to Milford to sell, and the prices were fair. For the first time since Eliza died, Gareth felt like he was not just surviving but actually living. Kara seemed more at ease too. She smiled occasionally, brief and fleeting but real. She joked with Gareth sometimes, dry observations that made him laugh, and she no longer flinched when he came near. She no longer watched him with suspicion. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Gareth realized he was happy. It was a strange feeling, unfamiliar after so many years of grief, but it was there, undeniable. "What are you thinking?" Kara asked. Gareth blinked. "Nothing, just that it has been a good harvest." "It has," she agreed. She was mending a shirt, her fingers nimble with the needle. "You will have enough to see you through the winter easily." "We will have enough," Gareth corrected without thinking. Kara's hand stilled. She looked at him. "I will be gone before winter." Reality crashed back down on Gareth. Of course. Her year was not up yet, but it would be by late autumn. Then she would be free to go, and she would. Why would she stay? This was not her home, he was not her family. She had been forced into this arrangement. The moment she could leave, she would. "Right," Gareth said, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Of course. I just meant for now. We have enough for now." Kara returned to her sewing, but the easy companionship of the moment before had evaporated. October arrived with its chill winds and falling leaves. Gareth found himself thinking more and more about the approaching end of Kara's sentence. He told himself he would be fine alone again. He had been alone before. He could do it again, but the farmhouse felt too quiet when she was not there. The evenings felt too long. He caught himself watching her as she worked, memorizing the way she moved, the rare sound of her laughter. He was falling for her, he realized with a jolt of fear. Maybe he had been falling for her for months now, and she was going to leave one afternoon. They were in the barn sorting through supplies when Kara said, "Gareth, can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated, her hands stilling on the sack of grain she was lifting. "When my year is up, what will you do?" "What do you mean? Will you hire someone else to help you? You cannot run this farm alone, it is too much work." "I managed before," Gareth said. "Barely," Kara said. "You said yourself that you were drowning in labor before I came. I will figure it out." Kara set down the sack and turned to face him fully. "What if I stayed?" Gareth's heart stuttered. "What? What if I stayed after my sentence is done?" she said. Her voice was carefully neutral, but he saw the tension in her shoulders. "You need help. I need a place to go. It would be practical." "Practical," Gareth echoed. "Unless you do not want me to," Kara said quickly. "If you would rather I leave, no," Gareth said, more forcefully than he intended. "No, I do not want you to leave. I just did not think you would want to stay." "Why would I not?" Kara asked. "I have no clan, no family, nowhere else to go. Here at least I have work, purpose." "I have," she stopped, as if catching herself. "You have what?" Gareth asked softly. She looked away. "I have someone who does not see me as a monster." Gareth crossed the space between them. He stopped just in front of her, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her yellow eyes. "I never saw you as a monster, Kara. I saw you as a person who needed help. And then I saw you as someone brave and honorable, and now I see you as—" He stopped, unsure if he should say it. "As what?" she whispered. "As someone I do not want to live without." The words hung in the air between them. Kara stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm and rough from labor, her grip strong. "I do not want to leave," she said quietly. "I have not wanted to leave for months now, but I thought you only tolerated me because the judge ordered it." "I tolerated you for about 3 days," Gareth said, and he felt a smile tugging at his lips despite the emotion welling in his chest. "After that, I wanted you here because you belong here, because this place is better with you in it, because I am better with you in it." Kara's eyes shone with something that might have been tears, though she blinked them away quickly. "You are the only human who has ever treated me like an equal, like I matter." "You do matter," Gareth said. "You matter to me." She stepped closer, and suddenly there was no space between them. Gareth could feel the warmth of her body, the steady rhythm of her breathing. His hand trembled as he lifted it to her face, cupping her cheek. She leaned into the touch, her eyes closing briefly. "I care for you," Gareth said. "More than I should, more than is probably wise, but I cannot help it." "Why is it not wise?" Kara asked. "Because you are orc and I am human, because people will talk, because..." She silenced him by pressing her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, uncertain, as if she expected him to pull away. But Gareth did not pull away. He kissed her back, pouring into it all the longing and affection he had been holding back for months. Her tusks pressed gently against his skin, strange but not unpleasant. Her arms came up around his neck, and he held her tightly, as if she might disappear if he let go. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Kara rested her forehead against his, and Gareth felt her smile. "I care for you too," she said. "I have for a long time. I just did not think you could feel the same." "I do," Gareth said. "God help me, I do." They stood there in the barn, holding each other, while outside the wind blew leaves across the yard and the sun sank toward the horizon. Gareth felt like his entire world had shifted, like he was standing on new ground. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. That night, Kara did not sleep in the barn. Gareth offered her the guest room in the farmhouse, and she accepted. It was a small thing, but it felt monumental. She sat at his table for supper. She helped him wash the dishes. She laughed at his terrible jokes. And when it was time for bed, she paused at the door to the guest room and looked at him with such warmth that his heart ached. "Good night, Gareth." "Good night, Kara." He lay in his own bed that night, staring at the ceiling, and he knew with absolute certainty that he was in love with her. He had been falling for months, but now there was no denying it. He loved her. And somehow, miraculously, she cared for him too. The next few weeks were the happiest Gareth could remember in years. He and Kara worked side by side during the day, but now there was an ease between them that had not been there before. They talked about everything and nothing. They laughed together. And in the evenings they sat close by the fire, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. But happiness, Gareth had learned, was a fragile thing. And trouble had a way of finding you when you least expected it. It came on a cold morning in early November. Gareth was in the barn feeding the sheep when he heard horses. He stepped outside to see a group of riders approaching, at least a dozen men, all armed. At their head was Thomas Fallen, his face set in grim determination. Kara emerged from the house, alerted by the noise. She saw the riders and immediately moved to Gareth's side. "I told you they would come back." "I hoped I was wrong," Gareth said quietly. Thomas reined in his horse a dozen paces away. "Gareth Brennan, step aside." "What do you want, Thomas?" "The orc," Thomas said flatly. "She murdered my brother. I have convinced the sheriff that justice was not properly served. We are here to take her back to Milford for a new trial." Gareth's blood ran cold. Judge Carfax already ruled on this. She was found innocent of murder. Carfax is a fool who let a monster walk free. Thomas said. "The sheriff has issued a new warrant. Step aside or we will move you aside." Gareth did not move. Kara's hand found his, her grip tight. "You have no legal authority here," Gareth said. "If the sheriff wants her, he can come himself with proper paperwork." "I have paperwork," Thomas said, pulling a folded document from his coat. "Signed by Sheriff Hale himself. The orc is to be remanded into custody immediately." Gareth's mind raced. He did not know if Thomas was telling the truth or if this was a fabrication. But he knew that if these men took Kara, he might never see her again. They would not give her a fair trial. They would hang her and no one would stop them. "No," Gareth said. Thomas's expression hardened. "Do not make this difficult." "I will make it as difficult as necessary." "You are not taking her." "We have 12 men," Thomas said. "You have yourself and a monster. You cannot win this fight." "Maybe not," Gareth said, "but I can make you regret trying." For a moment no one moved. The tension stretched taut as a bowstring. Then one of the men behind Thomas drew his sword, and everything happened at once. Kara shoved Gareth backward and charged forward, roaring. She had no weapon, but she did not need one. She grabbed the first man's sword arm and twisted, disarming him with brutal efficiency. Another man swung at her, and she ducked under the blade, driving her fist into his gut. He went down gasping. Gareth scrambled for anything he could use as a weapon. He grabbed a pitchfork from the barn and ran forward, jabbing at the horses to scatter them. The animals reared and bucked, throwing their riders into chaos, but there were too many. For every man Kara dropped, 2 more pressed forward. Gareth saw a blade slice across her arm, saw her stagger. Rage filled him, hot and consuming. He drove the pitchfork at the man who had cut her, catching him in the shoulder. The man screamed and fell. Thomas was on the ground now, sword in hand, advancing on Kara. She backed away, unarmed, bleeding. Gareth tried to reach her, but 2 men grabbed him, holding him back. He struggled, shouting her name. Thomas raised his sword for a killing blow. A shot rang out. Thomas stumbled, looking down at the spreading red stain on his shoulder. The sword fell from his nerveless fingers. Everyone froze. Gareth looked up to see a man on horseback at the edge of the property, a rifle in his hands. The man was tall and lean, wearing the badge of the county sheriff. Behind him were 6 more men, all armed, all wearing badges. "That is enough," Sheriff Hale said, his voice carrying across the yard. He rode forward, his rifle still leveled at Thomas. "Drop your weapons, all of you." The men who had come with Thomas hesitated, then obeyed. Swords clattered to the ground. The 2 men holding Gareth released him, and he ran to Kara. She was bleeding from the cut on her arm, but she was alive. He pulled off his shirt and pressed it against the wound, his hands shaking. Sheriff Hale dismounted and walked over to Thomas, who was clutching his bleeding shoulder. "You are under arrest, Mr. Fallen." "What?" Thomas gasped. "I have a warrant, you have a forgery," Hale said coldly. He pulled the document from Thomas's coat and held it up. "I never signed this. You faked my signature and my seal. That is a serious crime." Thomas's face went white. "But she killed my brother. Your brother tried to commit murder and was killed in the act," Hale said. "Judge Carfax ruled on this months ago. The matter is closed. You have no right to pursue vigilante justice. And now you will face the consequences." Hale's men moved forward, rounding up Thomas and his companions. Gareth barely paid attention. All his focus was on Kara, on stopping the bleeding, on making sure she was all right. "I am fine," she murmured, but her face was pale. "You are not fine, you are hurt. It is just a cut. It is more than a cut." Gareth's voice broke. "You could have been killed." "You almost—" He could not finish the sentence. Kara cupped his face with her uninjured hand. "But I was not. You fought for me. You risked everything for me." "Of course I did," Gareth said. I love you." The words were out before he could stop them. He stared at her, shocked at his own admission. But it was true. He loved her. He loved her fierceness and her honor and her strength. He loved the way she laughed at his jokes and the way she worked beside him in the fields. He loved everything about her. Kara's eyes widened. Then, despite the pain and the chaos around them, she smiled. "I love you too." Gareth kissed her then, ignoring the fact that the sheriff and his men were watching. He did not care. Let them see. Let the whole world see. When he finally pulled away, Sheriff Hale was standing nearby, looking faintly amused. "Mr. Brennan, Miss Kara, I need statements from both of you." "Of course," Gareth said. He helped Kara to her feet and they walked together to where the sheriff stood. Over the next hour, Gareth recounted everything that had happened. Kara gave her account as well, her voice steady despite her injury. Sheriff Hale listened carefully, taking notes. When they were finished, he nodded. "Thomas Fallon will be charged with forgery, assault, and attempted kidnapping," Hale said. "The rest of his men will face lesser charges as accomplices. You have my apologies that this happened at all. Thomas has been causing trouble for months, claiming his brother was wronged. I should have seen this coming." "You came when it mattered," Gareth said. "That is what counts." Hale glanced at Kara, then back at Gareth. "You know there will be talk. A human and an orc people will not like it." "Let them talk," Gareth said. "I do not care what people think." "Good," Hale said, "because you are going to face a lot of it." But he said it not unkindly, and Gareth thought he saw a hint of approval in the sheriff's eyes. After the sheriff and his men left, taking Thomas and his companions with them, Gareth brought Kara into the house and properly cleaned and bandaged her wound. She sat at the kitchen table, watching him work with an unreadable expression. "You really do not care what people think?" she asked softly. "No," Gareth said. He tied off the bandage and sat down across from her. "I care about you, that is all that matters. People will make your life difficult. They will refuse to trade with you. They will call you names. They will, I know," Gareth interrupted. "And I do not care. Kara, I meant what I said. I love you. I want you in my life. Not as a hired hand, not as a servant, but as my partner. As my," he hesitated, then pressed on. "As my wife, if you will have me." Kara stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "I have never been more serious about anything in my life." "Gareth, we cannot get married. The law does not forbid it," Gareth said. "I checked. There is no statute against intermarriage. It is just not done. But that does not mean it cannot be done." Kara's hands trembled. She looked down at them, then back at him. "You would marry an orc." "I would marry you," Gareth said. He took her hands in his. "I do not care that you are an orc. I care that you are kind and brave and strong. I care that you make me laugh. I care that I am a better man when I am with you. Say yes, Kara, please." For a long moment she said nothing. Then tears spilled down her cheeks and she nodded. "Yes, God help me, yes, I will marry you." Gareth pulled her into his arms and they held each other tightly. Outside the wind blew cold, but inside by the fire there was only warmth. They were married a week later in a small ceremony on the farm. Judge Carfax officiated, having agreed to perform the service after Gareth personally rode to Milford to ask him. The judge had been skeptical, but Gareth's sincerity had won him over. The only guests were Sheriff Hale, who stood as witness, and a few neighbors who were curious enough to attend. Most of the townspeople stayed away, disapproving of the union, but Gareth did not care. As he stood before the judge with Kara at his side, her hand in his, he felt more certain of this decision than he had ever felt about anything. "Do you, Gareth Brennan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Judge Carfax asked. "I do," Gareth said, his voice strong and clear. "And do you, Kara, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," Kara said. Then, by the authority vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Brennan, you may kiss your bride." Gareth kissed her, and it was the sweetest moment of his life. When they broke apart, Kara was smiling, and he saw joy in her eyes that had not been there before. Pure, unguarded joy. The neighbors who had come offered awkward congratulations and left quickly. Sheriff Hale shook Gareth's hand and nodded to Kara with something that might have been respect. Judge Carfax wished them well and departed, and then it was just the two of them, standing in the fading light of autumn. "Well, Mrs. Brennan," Gareth said, trying out the name. "What do you think?" Kara laughed, a sound so beautiful it made his heart ache. "I think I am the luckiest orc alive. I think I am the luckiest man alive." They walked back to the house hand in hand, and Gareth felt a peace settle over him that he had not known in years. This was right. This was home. Winter came early that year, bringing heavy snows and bitter cold, but inside the farmhouse there was warmth. Gareth and Kara settled into married life with surprising ease. She moved into the house fully, no longer sleeping in the guest room but in his bed, her presence a comfort and a joy. They worked the farm together, preparing for the long winter ahead. They cooked together, ate together, sat by the fire together in the evenings, and they talked about everything, about their pasts, their fears, their hopes. Gareth learned more about Kara's clan, about the harsh life she had led before being cast out. She told him about her parents, both killed in a raid when she was young, and her brother, whom she still prayed was safe. He told her about his parents, about his childhood on the farm, about the dreams he had once had for the future. "What do you dream of now?" Kara asked one evening as they lay in bed, her head resting on his chest. Gareth thought about it. "This," he said finally. "I dream of this, of you and me together, of building a life that is ours." "Not so ambitious," Kara teased. "Maybe not, but it is enough for me." She tilted her head to look at him. "What if we could have more? What if we could have a family?" Gareth's breath caught. "Do you want that?" "I do not know if it is possible," Kara said quietly. "Orc and human, I do not know if we can have children together. But if we could, I think I would like it." "So would I," Gareth said. He kissed the top of her head. "But even if we cannot, you are enough. You are more than enough." She hugged him tightly, and they fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms. Spring came again, bringing new life to the farm. The fields greened, the sheep gave birth to lambs, and the work began anew. But this spring was different. This spring, Gareth was not alone. Kara worked beside him, laughing and teasing and making even the hardest labor feel light. Word of their marriage had spread, and they faced the prejudice they had expected. When Gareth went to Milford to sell grain, some merchants refused to deal with him. People crossed the street to avoid him. He heard whispers and slurs, saw the disgust in people's eyes, but others surprised him. Sheriff Hale always greeted him with respect. Judge Carfax stopped by the farm once to check on them, and he seemed genuinely pleased that they were happy. A few of the neighbors, though initially skeptical, warmed to them over time. They saw that Gareth and Kara were simply two people trying to make a life together, and slowly, grudgingly, they began to accept it. And then, one warm day in late spring, Kara told him she was pregnant. Gareth stared at her, unable to speak. She stood in the kitchen, nervously twisting her hands together, waiting for his reaction. "Are you sure?" he finally managed. "I am sure," she said. "I have been feeling sick in the mornings, I am late, and I know." Gareth crossed the space between them in 2 strides and swept her into his arms, spinning her around. She laughed, startled, and he set her down gently, suddenly worried he had been too rough. "Are you happy?" she asked, searching his face. "Happy," Gareth said, and his voice broke. "Kara, I am more than happy." "I am," he could not find the words. so he kissed her instead, pouring all his joy and love and wonder into it. When they broke apart, both of them were crying. "We are going to have a baby," Kara whispered. "We are going to have a baby," Gareth repeated, and he laughed because it felt like a miracle. The pregnancy was not easy. Kara suffered from terrible sickness in the early months, and Gareth fretted over her constantly. He made her rest, cooked all her favorite foods, and rubbed her feet when they swelled. As her belly grew, he marveled at the life they had created together. Half human, half orc, a child who would belong to both worlds and neither. What if people are cruel to our child? Kara asked one night, her hand resting on her rounded stomach. "Then we will teach our child to be strong," Gareth said, "and to be kind despite the cruelty. We will teach them that they are loved, no matter what anyone else says. I want them to have a better life than I did." "They will," Gareth promised. "We will make sure of it." Autumn came again, and with it the birth. It was a long and difficult labor. Gareth paced outside the bedroom, listening to Kara's cries, feeling helpless and terrified. He had asked the midwife from Milford to come, but the woman had refused when she learned the mother was an orc. In the end, it was just Gareth and Kara, navigating the birth together. But when he heard the baby's first cry, all the fear melted away. Gareth rushed into the room to find Kara exhausted but smiling, cradling a tiny, squirming bundle in her arms. "A girl," she said, her voice hoarse. "We have a daughter." Gareth knelt beside the bed, looking down at his child. She was perfect. Tiny and wrinkled, with a dusting of dark hair and skin that was a pale green, lighter than her mother's but darker than his own. She had Kara's pointed ears and his human nose. When she opened her eyes, they were a striking amber, neither fully yellow nor fully brown. "Hello, little one," Gareth whispered. He touched her small hand, and she gripped his finger with surprising strength. His heart swelled so much it felt like it might burst. "What should we name her?" Kara asked. Gareth thought of his wife, Eliza, and the daughter he had lost. For a moment grief touched him, but it was not a bitter grief. It was bittersweet, a remembrance of love. "What about Alara?" he said. "It is close to my first wife's name, a way of honoring her memory." Kara considered this, then nodded. "Alara, I like it. It is a strong name." "Alara Brennan," Gareth said, testing it out. The baby made a small sound, almost like agreement. He smiled. "Welcome to the world, Alara." The months that followed were the hardest and happiest of Gareth's life. Alara was a healthy baby, but she required constant care. Gareth and Kara took turns waking in the night to feed her, to soothe her when she cried. The farm work did not stop, and they were both perpetually exhausted. But every time Gareth looked at his daughter, every time he saw her smile or heard her laugh, he felt a joy so profound it eclipsed the exhaustion. Not everyone shared their joy. When Gareth brought Alara to Milford for the first time, people stared openly. Some whispered. A few made rude comments within earshot. But Gareth held his daughter proudly and ignored them all. This was his child, his family, and he would not hide them away to make others comfortable. Sheriff Hale, to his credit, came to meet Alara personally. He looked at the baby with a thoughtful expression, then at Gareth and Kara. "She is going to have a hard road," he said bluntly. "We know," Gareth said. "But I reckon if anyone can raise a child to weather it, it is you two," Hale continued. "You have shown more courage and decency than most people I know. This little one is lucky to have you." It was the first real blessing anyone had given them, and it meant more than Gareth could say. As Alara grew, she proved to be a bright and curious child. She had her mother's strength and her father's stubbornness. She learned to walk early, toddling around the farmhouse with determined steps. She loved the animals, especially the sheep, and would squeal with delight whenever Gareth let her help feed them. Kara doted on her daughter, teaching her words in the Orcish tongue alongside the human language. Gareth built her toys, simple things carved from wood: a horse, a bird, a little doll. And in the evenings they would sit together as a family by the fire, Alara nestled between them, listening to stories. One evening, when Alara was 2 years old, Kara said, "Do you ever regret it? Marrying me, having Alara, the difficulties it has brought?" Gareth looked at his wife, at the worry in her eyes, and he took her hand. "Never, not for a single moment. But people treat you differently now. They judge you." "Let them," Gareth said. "I have everything I need right here. You and Alara, this farm, our life together. I would not trade it for all the approval in the world." Kara smiled, and he saw the relief in her face. "I love you, Gareth Brennan." "I love you too, Kara Brennan." Years passed. Alara grew from a toddler into a strong, spirited child. She was a mix of both her parents, fierce and kind, bold and thoughtful. She helped on the farm as soon as she was able, learning to tend the sheep and plant seeds and mend fences. And though she sometimes came home from the nearest village with tears in her eyes because other children had called her names, she never let it break her spirit. "Why do they say I am different?" she asked Gareth once when she was 7. Gareth knelt down to her level. "Because you are different. But being different is not bad. It is what makes you special." "I do not want to be special. I want to be like everyone else." "If you were like everyone else, you would not be my daughter," Gareth said gently. "And I think that would be a great loss." Alara hugged him tightly. "I am glad you are my father." "I am glad you are my daughter." Kara and Gareth had 2 more children over the years. A son they named Garin, who had his father's dark hair and his mother's yellow eyes, and another daughter, Sela, who looked almost entirely human except for the faint green tint to her skin. Each child was a blessing, each one loved beyond measure. The farm prospered. Word spread of the Brennan family, the human and orc who had married and built a life together. Some people scorned them, but others, particularly those who were outcasts themselves, came to see them as symbols of hope. Occasionally, another human and orc couple would visit, seeking advice or simply wanting to know they were not alone. Gareth and Kara welcomed them all. Judge Carfax, now an old man, visited one spring day. He sat on the porch with Gareth, watching as Kara and the children played in the yard. "I have been thinking about your case," Carfax said. "My case?" Gareth asked. "The day you stopped Kara's execution, I almost did not listen to you. I almost let her hang, but something in your face made me pause. Desperation, I suppose, or conviction." The judge sipped his tea. "I am glad I listened. What you and Kara have built here, it is remarkable. You have proved that love can bridge even the deepest divides." Gareth smiled. "We have had help. From you, from Sheriff Hale, from a few others who believed in us." "Perhaps," Carfax said, "but the courage was yours." He stood to leave, pausing to shake Gareth's hand. "You are a good man, Gareth Brennan, and Kara is a good woman. Your children are lucky." After the judge left, Kara came to sit beside Gareth on the porch. She leaned her head on his shoulder and he wrapped his arm around her. "Do you remember the day you testified for me?" she asked. "How could I forget? I thought you were insane, risking so much for someone you barely knew." "I knew enough," Gareth said, "and I knew it was the right thing to do. You saved my life that day." "You saved mine first," Gareth reminded her. "I was just returning the favor." Kara laughed softly. "I suppose we are even then." "I do not think we are keeping score anymore." "No," she agreed. "I suppose we are not." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play. Alara was teaching Garin how to throw a ball, and Sela was toddling after them, laughing. It was a simple scene, ordinary and domestic. But to Gareth, it was everything. He thought back to that cold morning years ago when he had pushed through the crowd to stop an execution. when he had looked into the eyes of a condemned orc woman and seen not a monster but a person. He had not known then what would come of his testimony. He could not have imagined this life, this family, this love, but he was grateful for it, grateful for every choice that had led him here. Grateful for Kara, for their children, for the home they had built together. "What are you thinking?" Kara asked. Gareth smiled. "I am thinking about how lucky I am." "Just lucky," she teased. "Incredibly, impossibly lucky," he said. "To have you, to have them." He gestured to their children. "To have this life. I would not change a single thing." Kara kissed his cheek. "Neither would I." The sun set over the fields, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The day's work was done, and the evening stretched ahead, full of warmth and laughter and love. Gareth Brennan, farmer and husband and father, sat with his wife on the porch of their home, and he knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. They had faced prejudice and danger. They had fought for their right to love each other, to build a family, and they had won. Not because the world had changed, but because they had refused to let the world dictate what they could be. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was messy and difficult and real, but it was theirs, and that made it beautiful. As darkness fell and the stars emerged one by one, Gareth stood and offered his hand to Kara. She took it, and together they walked inside, where their children waited. The door closed behind them, shutting out the cold night and sealing in the warmth. And in that farmhouse at the edge of the wilderness, where a human man and an orc woman had chosen love over fear, a family thrived, not in spite of the world, but because they had dared to believe they deserved happiness. That was their legacy. Not grand or glorious, but deeply, powerfully human. And orc, and everything in between, it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.